It has been somewhat of a pattern in my videos that I have a bone to pick with the writers of the Game of Thrones TV show, David Benioff and Dan Weiss. Today is no different. Sansa Stark is another character done immensely dirty by them. She's among the top 3 of my favourite book characters, together with Dany and Lyanna, whom I've already made videos on, but man, her arc in the show is lackluster at best. While I love the idea of her becoming Queen in the North, it didn't feel earned in the show. Sansa has always been a character to me whose strength came from her sense of compassion, perseverance in horrible situations, and her sharp, cunning wit. To these 2 writers, female empowerment means becoming the ultimate girl boss, stripped of all your humanity and emotions as you become a badass killer. And don't get me started on her storyline with Ramsay. Without going on an immensely long rant, today it's time to get Sansa back on the Winterfell throne, and make an idea I floated around in my Lyanna Stark video come true. Today, Sansa is becoming Queen in the North of an independent Northern realm, and I will be doing it with the help of my computer and Crusader Kings 3 with the AGOT mod installed. Oh, and by the way, I livestreamed the first half of this game, which I uploaded as a VOD on my channel under the live section if you want to watch it. Let's get on with the video. Like my other videos, I'm playing with a few submods enabled to make the gameplay more interesting. The mods I use and the mod order I put them in will be shown on screen, and I'll put them in the description. I'll also be enabling a few game rules to try and keep a small bit of consistency to the canon, as far as I can. Historical outcomes are weighted, canon children are enabled, and dragons are enabled. I did disable the Phagon invasion because he often ends up breaking my save games. We'll be playing during the Crowned Stag bookmark, the latest bookmark in the book canon, as it's the earliest time where Sansa can appear. So, like my Lyanna video, I had to start as Ned Stark. Sansa isn't born yet in this timeline, so I had to wait for a while for Ned and Catelyn to do their thing and make baby Sansa. Soon, she was born. Now, because of the way the succession works in this game, I had to try and get rid of a few men before Sansa could get the chance to become Queen in the North. Both in my Lyanna Stark video's comment section and in my current stream chat, people were quite iffy as to the idea of me killing Ned and Robb to be able to play as Sansa, instead of trying to see if I could find an alternative to get Sansa as the Lady Paramount of the North. After some pondering, I acquiesced to my audience and I used the debug menu to pick the quote-unquote make lamp decision, which dethrones a character and makes them a landless adventurer. As per chat's suggestion, I did wait for Arya to be born so Sansa could have a friend in the future, a decision I would later much regret. And there we are. We now had Sansa Stark as our player character. Long may she reign. I had a plan for getting the other Lords Paramount to support me in my quest for Northern independence. I was going to go down the intrigue learning path and use my eventual scheming skills to try and get hooks on my fellow Lords Paramount to get them to join my independence faction against Robert Baratheon. Just a fair warning ahead of time, none of this plan ended up coming to fruition, as our path to independence ended up being wildly different, but I thought it was a pretty decent idea at first. I tried to get Ned, Catelyn, and Robb to come back to my court, but they didn't seem to want to do so. Maybe it was for the best, because soon after, poor Ned Stark died of consumption. I wouldn't want him to infect my court with all that. As Sansa was growing up, I was prompted to pick personality traits for her, and I tried to get as close to the canon as I could, so I ended up getting deceitful, lazy, trusting, and compassionate. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough for me. As Sansa aged and I kept playing, I eventually started looking for a future husband for her, though none of the candidates impressed me at first, so I waited some more time. At some point, Jon Snow challenged Sansa to a playful duel and she absolutely whooped his ass. Suddenly, Robert Baratheon died in a fiery accident and small little Joffrey Baratheon took the throne. At this news, half of the realm started factions against him. Discontent was brewing as Renly Baratheon wanted the throne, Mace Tyrell wanted to destroy the title of the Seven Kingdoms, and Tywin Lannister wanted to lower the crown authority. This was a perfect political climate to try and advocate for Northern independence, but sadly we were still only 12 years old, so way too young to really do anything. Not long after, Renly pressed his claim and started a mega war against Joffrey Baratheon to become king instead. I once again started perusing the list of potential husbands, and at the sighting of a kind-natured, decent-looking, and age-appropriate Blackwood boy of the old god's faith, I knew what had to be done. Oscar Blackwood was matrilineally betrothed to Sansa Stark, forming an alliance with Titus Blackwood. I immediately gave him a makeover, and then looked at the war against Joffrey again. He was getting absolutely clobbered by Renly, and seeing as his forces were weak and he was vulnerable because of the war, I decided to declare Northern independence. However, immediately after I did, Renly won the war and became king of the Seven Kingdoms. During Sansa's childhood, I had slowly but surely been working on rebuilding Moat Cailin as well. Robert Baratheon had granted Ned Stark fortification rights in the north as his vassal contract was changed, so we had the chance to rebuild it without pushback. It's an incredible fort at a perfect location, so I wanted it to be at as strong as it could be in case we had to come to blows with the south as we tried getting independence. We finished rebuilding Moat Cailin, and Sansa gained the nickname the Shield of the North for doing so. Shortly after, Sansa became an adult, and I finally saw independence within my grasp. I went down the skullduggery intrigue tree and started an independence faction against Renly. It quickly became clear to me, however, that I did not have near enough military strength to try and do it alone. Then, I saw that Tywin Lannister had started the Dissolution faction against Renly instead, and he was joined by Doran Martell and Balon Greyjoy, 3 mighty armies. My eyes lit up at this golden opportunity. If this faction's demands were met, the title of the Iron Throne would be destroyed, and we'd all become independent realms, which was one way to get an independent north. So, I joined Tywin's faction instead. But before doing anything, Sansa celebrated her marriage to Oscar Blackwood, and the couple became soulmates not long after. With our 249% military faction power, our Dissolution faction had more than enough power to press our demands, so I sent out the order to present our demands to King Renly. A raven arrived, stating that Renly Baratheon was having none of it. So, a war was started for the dissolution of the Iron Throne. Renly was absolutely outnumbered. The Iron Islands, the Vale, the Riverlands, and Dorne joined in on our cause. Part of the Stormlands, the Crownlands, and Old Town joined in for Renly. Renly was completely and utterly surrounded by our forces, as the Stormlands were cut off by Dorne, and the Reach and the Crownlands were surrounded by the Vale and the Riverlands. And, of course, Old Town was completely surrounded on all sides by the Reach and by the Arbor. This meant that the Crown had to cut through our forces on every side to get anywhere useful, and the terrain difficulties in the mountainous regions of the Vale and the hills bordering the Stormlands and Dorne were also problematic. Plus, we were being reinforced by the near infinite flow of gold and men-at-arms from the Westerlands and the sizable navy of the Iron Islands. As if Renly wasn't already stressed enough, Viserys Targaryen had managed to hatch the 3 dragons Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal by sacrificing his sister wife Daenerys to do so, and he had gathered a large army in the Free Cities. Soon after, he also declared war on Renly in the Targaryen Restoration War. You'd almost feel bad for Renly. With even some of the Crownlands now turning against King Renly, he was what the kids called absolutely cooked. I let my forces hang out by Moat Cailin for some time, to see if the enemy forces would try and chase after us and spring our trap, but they didn't get baited. Then I found out from Edmure Tully that Roose Bolton had seduced my mother Catelyn. Hypocrite that he was, Edmure then tried seducing me, his niece. What are you doing? For a brief moment, the war was turning badly our way, so I decided to let the Otto armies do their thing and take the fighting of my less capable hands. In the meantime, Jon Snow had eloped with a lowborn girl he fancied, and Catelyn had become pregnant with one of Roose Bolton's bastards. After our forces had managed to siege King's Landing, the war score once again turned hugely in our favour as Balon Greyjoy managed to capture Renly's son and heir. In the meantime, Viserys and his dragons had managed to overthrow Renly, and he became the new king of the Seven Kingdoms. During this time, we also found out Sansa was pregnant with her first child by Oscar. This is where the game went a little buggy, I think. Instead of continuing our dissolution war against Viserys, it was now continued against Renly, who was the Lord of the Stormlands again. This was strange, but we had little to no choice but to continue fighting. Sadly, Sansa and Oscar's first child was stillborn. Soon after, hope returned as we found out Sansa was pregnant again. The war waged on, and Renly stood no chance against our forces, and soon the war was won, and that war score ticked to that beautiful 100%. For a second, I thought we had independence, but it was just because we had stayed neutral in Jaime Lannister's war against Viserys' tyranny that we were shown as separate on the map from the Iron Throne. Seizing my opportunity again, while the realm was in disarray, I declared independence. As we awaited Viserys' response, Sansa's first child, a girl, was born. We named her Lyanna in honor of her deceased aunt. A raven had arrived from King's Landing, bearing the Targaryen dragon seal. To prevent further bloodshed, King Viserys had agreed to acknowledge the northern bid for independence, and let go of its sovereignty of the north, making Sansa its rightful queen. At age 19, Sansa Stark became queen in the north, with her dear king Oscar Blackwood at her side. As she walked down the halls of Winterfell, she beamed with pride as she was crowned with the crown of winter that her forebears had worn before her. She could feel her father smiling down on her as her men chanted her name and declared her their queen. Sansa held a coronation to officially be crowned. And, of course, an event like this was followed by a brief makeover to give Sansa the appropriate crown and clothes she deserved, and to give Oscar a haircut to suit his new crown. Our mother Catelyn had also become pregnant with her second bastard baby by Roose Bolton. While poking around the Bolton family tree, I saw that Ramsay Bolton had turned out to be a decently good person, hilariously. This truly was the most cursed timeline. Anyway, I held the coronation at Winterfell and decided to have Sansa take the Shape the Realm oath. It felt right to me, as Sansa had already proven her merit in building a stronger northern kingdom when she rebuilt Moat Cailin. So now she was going to continue building infrastructure around the whole new kingdom. It seemed that our sister Arya was quite envious of our recent victories, and decided to try and duel Sansa for the honor of the ownership of a special crown I had commissioned for Sansa's coronation. With Sansa wielding ice, however, which came with some insane stat boost, she swiftly beat Arya and kept her crown firmly on her head. As if not enough gross uncles had tried to hit on Sansa, Benjen Stark then tried his hand at seducing her, but was quickly told to run along and keep his oath to the watch, or face the sword. He wisely backed off. Influenced by mysterious forces, Sansa decided to betroth her eldest daughter and current heir, Lyanna, to a Beesbury lad from the Reach, Edmund Beesbury, in a matrilineal marriage. Sansa still had some great plans for her daughter. Speaking of those plans, I now finally started trying to set them in motion, and Sansa now had the power to do so, being an independent realm. I'd started setting my sights on something I do for most of my videos and streams at this point, which is reforming the dominant faith of my character to allow for more equal gender succession laws and more freedoms and protections for women. To do this, I had to reform the Northman culture, which wasn't too hard as I was its culture head. But I also had to diverge the faith of the old gods to allow for the same, which was a lot harder as the faith did not allow for any pilgrimages, so our usual piety farming methods were completely useless. For now, I decided to try and get piety in other ways. I hosted a funeral for our brother Bran, who died in an accident. During the funeral, Sansa and Oscar got up to some naughty stuff as she fell pregnant with their second child. I decided to split Sansa's branch of the family into a cadet house and created her own little sigil for it, a running wolf in front of a weirwood tree with a crown that symbolized three things: the northern faith and culture through the weirwood tree, the Stark family through the wolf, and the Norse new sovereignty through the crown. Not long after, Sansa's first son and current heir was born, and Oscar Blackwood asked to name his son Benjamin, after an ancestor of his. A match to the daughter of Lord Perrimond Willis Tyrell, Alice Tyrell, was arranged so we could get an alliance with the South in case anything bad happened and I needed a diverse spread of allies. I spent some time trying to take a nice photograph for my video thumbnail and found out Sansa was pregnant with her third child. To the delight of their parents, another healthy and bouncing baby boy was born, and they named him Eddard, after his granddad. I betrothed him to a young girl from the Forrester family, Beth Forrester, for some popular opinion among my smaller vassals, and because she had pretty damn good traits. I decided to go down the learning skill tree in theology to try and unlock the prophet perk, which would slash the piety cost of reforming your faith in half to make it a bit easier on myself down the line. Sansa decided to try and keep King Viserys of the Iron Throne on friendly terms with the North, so she chose to travel to King's Landing to pay tribute to him. She took Jon Snow with her as her caravan master, but on the way, tragedy struck. Our convoy was ambushed by bandits, and as they chased us for days, it became clearer and clearer that they were not going to let up. Sansa had two options. It was a life or death situation. She either had a really solid chance of dying as she stuck with her half-brother, or Jon could sacrifice himself to take down the bandit leader, losing his life in the process. I agonized over the decision for quite some time, but eventually I realized I could not risk the young mother's life and the stability of the new crown. So, Jon Snow stayed behind, getting killed in the process as Sansa got away safely. After paying tribute to King Viserys, Sansa hurried home. While she was never particularly close to her bastard half-brother, he was one of the few siblings she had left at Winterfell at this point. As soon as Sansa arrived back in Winterfell, she had Jon's body brought back and hosted a grand funeral for him, burying him in the Winterfell crypts among the Starks, as a final thank you for his courage and devotion. Now, while Sansa was busy mourning her half-brother, after he heroically sacrificed himself to make it safely to King's Landing so she could give King Viserys some money so he'd leave her alone, King Viserys was plotting his own dastardly scheme. You see, ever since we became independent, we technically own land that de jure belongs to the Iron Throne, and by extension the king. But come on, we just paid him a bucket load of money to keep the peace, and we're at our brother's funeral. What are the odds that King Viserys is going to bother to push that claim? So anyway, King Viserys bothered to push that claim and marched the full might of his army and dragons over to the north to take the neck. I tried briefly to fight back and use Moat Cailin to my advantage, but swiftly realized that even Moat Cailin is not immune to dragon fire, and as my armies were getting trampled by the Targaryens, I realized that this was going to be a losing battle, and surrendered to try and prevent any further bloodshed. Also during this conflict, Arya was once again down our throats as Sansa became rivals with her. And so was Oscar apparently, because Sansa also ended up pregnant with her 4th child. A healthy baby girl was born in a war encampment, and we named her Catelyn, after Sansa's beloved, complicated mother. To comfort myself about the loss of the neck, I gave my children and some of their future spouses some makeovers, as that always manages to comfort me greatly. After being influenced by the evil voices in my head telling me to, I briefly toyed around with the idea of murdering Viserys, but I abandoned that when I realized it would not work and it stressed Sansa the hell out. To de-stress, I decided to take a lovely family portrait of our little family to remember this day by. Our good friend and older brother Robb, who had briefly fought alongside me in the war against the Targaryens, sadly passed away after sustaining some wounds during a hunt, right around the time our eldest daughter Lyanna came of age. I hosted a grand wedding for her and her Beesbury betrothed. All this time, I was still trying to find a new way to earn more piety for Sansa to continue reforming the faith, but it was proving to be a difficult task so far. Soon, our son Benji had come of age and married, and I found out Arya and her murderous cannibal husband had tried to murder me right after we stopped being rivals and supposedly buried the hatchet, and they both subsequently fled the reach of Sansa's power. I took another family photo after updating some of the kids' looks and found out Arya had come to Winterfell, so as much as it hurt, we banished her from the north for her attempted crimes. Soon after, it became apparent that Arya had died while being torn to shreds by a bear on our way out the north. I can't say it ain't karma. At this point, we had amassed enough piety to reform our faith. I decided to have a look at some of the tenets and decided to keep it relatively same to the original faith of the old gods, though I modified 2 parts. I made same-sex relationships accepted because this was filmed during Pride Month, and I made the view on gender equal for men and women. I called the new faith the Faith of the Weirwoods. With our new faith introduced and the laws of our realm automatically changed, our eldest child Lyanna had automatically become Sansa's new heir, and a princess in her own right. To prepare her for rule, Sansa took over the education of Lyanna's eldest child, her son Walton, to try and shape him into a good future king. For an alliance, Walton was betrothed to the daughter of Lord Tully and started squiring for his father. I finally went back into the diplomacy lifestyle purgatory, betrothed Sansa's youngest daughter Catelyn to a Greyjoy prince as the Iron Islands had also gotten their independence, and I elevated Lyanna to co-monarch to hopefully prepare her better for her future role as queen. Life from here on went on as it always does. Ruling an independent realm had its challenges, but Queen Sansa had been doing this for most of her life. She led her people with grace for many years. She saw the death of her nemesis, King Viserys, and saw his only child, now Queen Rhaella, ascend to the Iron Throne. Sansa started a legend about her incredible, eventful life that spread quickly throughout the realm, and it elevated her to a near legendary figure in the north. She also lost her arm in a hunting accident. Eventually, however, dear, darling King Oscar Blackwood passed away, like all good men would do in time, and Sansa was forced to continue on without him. She did so with grace, and not long after the passing of her beloved husband, Sansa became old enough to see herself become a great-grandmother through her grandson Walton. She got the Stark bloodline consecrated, and saw her grandson join the Night's Watch. Queen Sansa lived to see her family grow immensely. Her children secured themselves happy marriages and many, many grandchildren and great-grandchildren for Sansa. But as any person would expect, her body would start giving out eventually. Her bones grew fragile and brittle, and her mind started degrading as she started struggling remembering basic things. Her children's faces started becoming less and less familiar to her, until one day her body and her mind gave up. Queen Sansa Stark died at age 66, peacefully in her sleep of old age. She was succeeded by her daughter Lyanna Stark, the new queen in the north. Sansa left behind an illustrious legacy, known for achieving what many thought impossible: an independent northern realm, ruled by a wise and peaceful queen who established a new order in the realm. Her father would have been so, so proud. I had so much fun streaming the first half of the game, and I want to thank everyone who attended my streams and interacted with it. I had a blast playing the save file, and it's been a video that has been on my mind since I filmed my first ever video, so I'm glad I got it done. I'm not someone that usually likes to beg for subscribers, so I'll say it very briefly, but I really appreciate all the support I've been shown, not just by my audience, but my fellow YouTubers as well. I've received so much incredible feedback and so many ideas from fellow creators, it has truly been inspiring. If you want more videos like this one, I'd appreciate any support shown to my channel through liking or subscribing, but it's completely optional. I want to give a special shout out to Professor Jam, who's been incredibly helpful and a wonderful person overall. He gave me so many wonderful tips and information about how warfare works in CK3, and I'd like to think he is partially to thank for my success in getting Northern independence, a prospect that once scared me. I have a Discord server where I post screenshots from my playthroughs, announce my streams, tease upcoming videos, and chat with my audience about all kinds of topics if that's what interests you. I have the link to it in the description. Thank you all for everything, and see you in the next video. Peace!